Is there such a thing as too much luck? Is there such a thing as too much fun? Messing around, wondering how it's taken so long. I'm really so strong. It's not too much at all.
Welcome to Too Much. We are here every Monday talking about redefining pathways to success in business and in life. And it seems that there's a bit of a tailwind around this idea of what it is to be a working creative in music. And so I brought one of my favorite musical creative mastermind friends, CJ Baran, this week to walk us through his amazing, interesting, diversified career. So before we jump in with CJ, I'm just going to tell everyone a little bit about you, but welcome and thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So CJ Baran is a Los Angeles-based producer, songwriter, and creative director whose work lives at the intersection of alternative rock and pop. Known for his genre-bending approach and cinematic sonic palette, CJ has written and produced hits for a wide range of artists, including Panic at the Disco, Coin, Melanie Martinez, Nessa Barrett, Carly Rae Jepsen, and Marina, among many, many others. And after having publishing deals with Max Martin's MXM and Pulse, he founded his own creative collective, Vamp, which focuses on forward-thinking alternative pop with a focus on concept albums. In addition to his work in mainstream music, CJ co-wrote and produced the immersive gothic musical Cages, which is awesome. And it was acclaimed by Forbes and the LA Times for its visionary staging and music. And he also recently composed a score for the 2 Michelin-starred Vespertine in collaboration with Sigur Rós.
Great
Welcome,
restaurant.
CJ. How fun to, sum up all your accomplishments in a minute.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Weird.
So tell us, let's go back to the beginning, because I think a lot of the people that listen to this are maybe, it's a complicated economy and it's confusing, especially when it comes to a creative path, to figure out how to get, we hear all the success stories. How can we make this more transparent? Where did you start? How did you even begin making money as someone working in music?
I started in bands really young. First band, I was like 10, and it was terrible. But that just kind of gave me a taste for that, and continued throughout high school, and signed my first deal when I was a sophomore with a bunch of friends that I had just kind of making music with. MySpace, if you remember MySpace music charts, that was the actual first step for me making it a real career. We made this record in my basement. We had like 3 microphones, just mic'd up a drum kit, put another mic on another guitar amp. It sounded awful, absolutely awful. It didn't really matter because people were just putting music on MySpace. And for whatever reason, it kind of popped off a little bit and got us on the chart there. And then before we knew it, we had a bunch of offers from record labels, and we signed with Sony Wind Up. That was like my junior year in high school.
Wow.
So that was the kind of beginning. We toured a bunch. As soon as I graduated high school, we went straight on the road for almost a year, just bouncing around different tours, some headlines, some opening
What was the
act
band
slots.
called?
It was called Push Play. It was kind of like it's like anime hair. Yeah, whole other era.
The many hairstyles of CJ.
Oh, so many. So many straightening irons, so many bottles of bleach.
Amazing.
So that was the beginning. And I did that for maybe about another year and a half after graduation, and loved making music, but really didn't like touring. I'm kind of like a home-based guy. I want to be in one spot. I want to be making music for a bunch of different acts, not kind of being boxed into one sound. And I realized, I can do this if I'm a producer. So my first step out here, luckily because of the band, I had a lot of connections in LA with producers that my band had worked with. So I immediately started hitting them up like, hey, can I be your editor? Can I tune your vocals for you? Whatever you need. Can I program synths for you? And I found a bunch of little pockets of work with all of them. And my first legit music job that was steady was making sound-alike tracks for American Idol. And that was when I was like 19, 20 out here. And that was cool. Like that actually, it was really great pay for a 19-year-old, got me really set up nicely, and made me learn how to work in multiple different genres really quick. So I did that. And while that was happening, I was writing with a few artists that were more up and coming. And one of them was this artist, Pixie Lot, out of London, who I just was a huge fan of. And I wrote a few songs with her. And that kind of led me to my first publishing deal with Pulse, who at the time were super boutique. There, couldn't have been more than 10 writers on there. And
Wow.
now I think they've got a couple hundred.
Yeah, they're
Super
huge.
successful, incredible company. Like, they built something so special. So that was the next probably 2 to 3 years just doing that. And they had booked me with all different types of artists, different genres, kind of a lot of experimentation, a lot of failing, a lot of songs that just will never come out, that will just rot on hard drives that I don't even know where they are anymore.
Yeah.
And then that kind of led me to meeting Max Martin, which was really an amazing time. I look back at that very fondly. And he had a company called MXM. There were a bunch of writers signed there. Everybody had their own thing in there, a lot of Swedes, a few Americans. And it was awesome. Like, they had converted this old house that used to belong to Marilyn Monroe and made it into these beautiful studios, and people would work there. It was killer vibe. And I did that for another 4 or 5 years while simultaneously building this musical idea that I had called Cages with my best friend, Ben Romans. And we wrote it and didn't know what we were doing at all. Neither of us had ever written anything for theater, had never done anything in film because there was a large film component to it. I know you came to go see the show. It was a lot of, basically, the best way to describe it is a live musical movie. So a lot of the characters were actually CG or pre-filmed and projected as illusions, like Pepper's Ghost. And, we had live actors at the time. I was playing it in LA, working against these hologram actors and creating this kind of 3D space that felt new for theater. So that was while that was happening. And then the pandemic just absolutely decimated everything. It took us almost 5 years to build that show. And we took over a warehouse, learned a lot about permitting and changing use of a warehouse into an event space, like all these things that we never knew we were going to do. And honestly, if we knew what we were going to encounter before starting, we probably just wouldn't have done it.
I think that's
but it
like
was,
the
yeah,
byline of every entrepreneur.
absolutely. Yeah, we had no idea, but we learned a lot, and that was really great. We transferred over to London, did its thing there, and then of course, yeah, pandemic kind of shut that down, and I focused back in on producing and writing. And right after that, had recouped out of my publishing deal and decided to start my own kind of shop over here called Vamp, but very specifically focused on more of the alternative pop, more theatrical, left of center, smaller niches, internet niches, and really trying to help bring those more into the center stream of things.
So I want to go back just a little bit. When you were talking about learning how to produce, was that just like you being a sponge in the studio, or were you also teaching yourself at home how to use the software and the programs to make music?
Quickly, everything has changed. Back then, trying to get and find it and nail it. Now you have all these incredible platforms like Splice, and you can just go on there, get a loop started real quick, or so different.
Really cool.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's like some ongoing education even now
always.
with platforms.
Oh,
Yeah.
every single day, I still learn something new. Every day.
So cool.
And every time I work with different producers, they're teaching me something else, and I'm showing them something. Just yesterday, the dumbest thing ever, that I have been just manually cutting things a certain way. This producer I was working with was like, "Oh, why don't you just try Control Command X and look what happens?" And boom, this thing that took me 10 seconds now takes 1 second. So little things.
It's like DJing too, where I'm always learning new little bits, or you're
Yes.
adding to the repertoire of like what works or doesn't work. And I think the more you gain mastery, you have more space to add more tools in, because in the beginning you're just sort of trying to master the basics. You don't have like the ability to go wider with tools, because you're like, let me just do this one thing really well, and then it's add to the library, add to the library, add to the repertoire, and get better and better and better.
It's so true. And I feel like as more time goes on, I feel less like a master.
Right, but that's the crazy
you
thing.
learn. Yes.
You feel less like a master, but when I think about performing or DJing, it's like I have a better handle on the basics, so I'm a better performer, and what used to stress me out more stresses me out less,
Yes,
but I still feel like I know nothing.
it's absolutely it.
Yeah. It's cool though. I think it's so fun to be like, I've been doing this for, 15 years and I feel like I'm just starting, which shows you how long it takes to really feel seated in work that we do.
Absolutely the case.
Yeah. So let's talk about your creative process a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm curious. What is your approach? Has your methodology changed over time? Like, is it something that strikes you? Is it more of a discipline? How do you approach your creative work?
It's very different. I would say there's two sides of it. The first side is booked sessions with artists, right? So I'm gonna go in sometimes for the first time with an artist, sometimes artists that I've worked with for years. I'm there as a vessel to hear what they want to make and help them make it come together. That's it. So they want to do some weird industrial track. Like I'm asking for references. What do they like listen to? What do they not like about it? How do they want to be different? Right? That's less about me. I'm just listening and trying to basically translate it into the program. For myself, creativity is more walking around aimlessly, get an idea, feel excited about it. If I feel excited about it, I'll write it down. And if I continue to stay excited about that idea, the minute I have free time, I will put it together. Even if it's a rough sketch, I'll put it down. But it's only driven by inspiration.
What's funny is walking is such a through line in this podcast of how people,
It's
I'm
the
like,
only
if we've learned anything, walking as a creative should be
it
non-negotiable as
should.
part of your life.
I swear, if I go a few days without walking or being outside, even for 20 minutes, totally different output.
Totally different day. This is I love that you're saying this because this has become one of the great lessons that no one talks about. I'm like, just fucking walk. Walking will change your fucking life.
It will. It will.
It's funny because I just watched that show Hitmakers on Netflix. Have you seen it?
I'm not. No. I
Okay.
can't watch
Well,
any
I'm
shows that have to do with music.
well, it's your life. So you're living it. I'm just gonna basically woman splain to you
Okay.
now this takeaway of the show. But as I'm watching it, they have sessions they're working. It's these number one songwriters that are working on sessions for these artists. And we're basically flies on the wall watching a session. And I have a lot of friends that work in music, but I found it to be so funny because they'll go in and be like, today I'm feeling the word cherry. Let's go with the word cherry. And they just start writing lyrics around cherry, right? And I was like, well, I guess that makes sense because a lot of pop songs, it's not like they don't have to be that deep, right? They can be fun. They're party songs. Some of them are more soulful. It depends on the artist in the session. Is that similar to how your sessions work?
Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes I'll just start programming some drums. I'll pull out a bass or piano or something, just play over it and just see what comes out. Usually, if it's an artist in the room, they're gonna be leading the concept, the
Hmm.
lyric. They know what they want to talk about.
Right.
So yeah, I just let them rock. Like, what are you feeling? And then I'm just kind of there to help piece it.
Right. I guess it's a little different because you work directly with the artist
Right.
versus like pitching songs to an artist. So you're working with at least they have a point of view.
Totally. Which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do much like pitching, blind pitching. If it is, it's
Yeah.
just like I was saying, if there's an idea that I'm really inspired by, I'll put it down and I have it. And if there happens to be a project that's looking for something like that, I'll send it. But I'm really like, oh, today I want to try to write something for X artist. I haven't done that in years.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting to watch because I was like, all the songs are so good.
Oh
When you
yeah,
talk about making what at this level of production, writer, when we talk about hit songs, what people don't really realize is that, for example, on any album, to have one hit song, you probably made 300 for that one.
yeah.
It's the sheer amount of work that goes into what gets selected onto an album. There's so much that will never see the public or the light of day. Is that hard as a producer to have to kill your babies all the time?
You know what? I never look at it as killing babies because they're just ideas that might come to life later on in some other project. And that has happened so many times. I've had cuts that were supposed to be for one band, and actually there was a Panic at the Disco song that was done for a completely different band, starting, and then their publishing A&R heard the track, and they're like, "Oh, we want to try to write something else over this." And I sent the track, and that became a completely different song. So there's always hope for any idea that's created.
That's such a great way to frame it, is that you're putting it on the shelf and who knows, it could always come back out, but nothing's ever in vain.
Absolutely.
It's just about timing.
Yes.
Really cool. So when you're creating with artists, is it about making something new or prioritizing something they have to say, or both? Or what usually wins out? Does it depend on the artist? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, it's definitely, at least for me, very artist driven. They're coming in with an idea, and I'm just trying to figure out the most interesting way to help them let it out. So, especially concepts and lyrics, like I don't know what they want to say. I don't live in their head, right? So even
Right.
like even some pitching in ideas, it's got to start with them. And then if they, for instance, want to do grunge, like there's an artist that I'm working with right now that she's really trying to figure out how to do grunge and do it new. So I'm looking at it like, okay, I get it. The guitar tones, like the harmonics, the way things work there. Absolutely. Like the framework of grunge. What did grunge in the 90s not have? It didn't have really
Right.
tight drums. Electro was very washed out. Everything was kind of blown. So what is that like in today's drums and today's guitar tones? Like instead of using a guitar amp, we're going to put it through a cassette deck and blow it out. It just different
Cool.
types of things. And that creates a new sound on a sound that everyone's already attached to nostalgically.
That's what's fun about where you're living, is that nothing we're doing is new at this point,
No,
really, truly. Like
everything
there's,
is
it's
some
all
derivative.
yeah, relatively derivative. But like in Marina's album, felt very 90s pop or like club music, but then you brought in strings and you brought in other instruments that we wouldn't classically hear during that time.
Totally. She was really inspired by 70s aesthetics. That's another thing. Any artist that I work with, the first question is, what does it look like? Before we even write anything, what does the world look like?
Mm.
Give me the characters. Why do people want to live in this world? It's those questions. And that kind of helps.
Do they always know?
Yeah, they always know.
Wow.
They always know. And that's key. That's to me, that's the groundwork. And it's okay, if it looks like this, if it looks like shag carpets, disco balls, and residual blow from 5 years ago. What are we gonna
Yeah.
do to make it sound like that? And how are we gonna do it in a way that hasn't been done yet? So if it's disco,
Mm.
like let's use synths that are coming from stranger synthesizers that didn't exist in that era.
Wow. So how do you even probe sonically different types of, like, where does that inspiration come from? Do you just try a bunch of shit, or you're just like, "Oh, I'm in the kitchen banging this pan. Let's see how this sounds." Like, how does it
Totally. It's
come together?
it's just trial and error fully. Now, usually for me, if it is something based on a genre, I'll start with the framework and then I'll pull everything out and reproduce it. So take the drums out.
Wow.
What drums
Mhm.
should, usually it's what should not be here. What is
Right.
absolutely wrong? And then put it in there and feature it. And that, for me at least, I find the most success.
What's the weirdest sound that's ever gone into a song that you've used?
Oh man. I mean, I'm trying to think of I mean, all the time I'll take, if someone's laughing or you're singing, you're doing 3 hours on the mic, you're gonna burp, right? Like I have taken burps and turned them into synthesizers, really beautiful pads, and you would never know.
Sick.
That kind of stuff.
So cool. But this is so interesting. People don't even understand how much goes into 1, 2, or 3-minute song, and like the
Totally.
level of detail or sound that's being used. That's why I love being a DJ, is because it's all those tiny things. Like it's the little cowbell, it's the little triangle when I'm DJing, that I'm like, that changed the whole song for me.
Absolutely.
And that's what drew me to it, was I was like, "Oh, people don't even know this thing is happening, and it's so special." It's what makes you love it.
It's so true. That's it. That's the groundwork.
Wow, this is so cool. It's so fun for me. I'm learning a lot too. This is a good time. So, I want to talk about your career. Is so interesting to me, and I think will be for a lot of people, because you haven't really, even though you've stayed in this lane of music, you haven't allowed yourself to be limited by that box. You're constantly exploring new pathways, ideas. Cages is such a great example of that, and what went into Cages, because Cages was essentially, in my head, like a theater startup. Like you were building technology and you were making theater and you were making music. It was a ton of work. And so can you tell us about why you decided to pursue that. And, it's a very different hat than the music producer hat. So how did you edify yourself to even step into that role as CEO of a theater, or not even a theater, theater technology company?
I think at that time in particular, I was so burnt out on the traditional grind of songwriting and producing, and I just wanted an outlet that felt like it was mine, or at least mine and Ben's together, that we could just build something and no one could tell us any notes on it. It was on us and we were going to put it out there. And it started way smaller than where it began. It was going to just be a music project. And then we're like, oh, well, like, let's
Mhm.
make it a little experience. And in 2016, we did a pop up that was 6 songs and some video projection, but very bare bones. And we met these really incredibly talented brothers, the Richardsons, David, Ryan, and Charlie. And they came from a family of inventors. And they had this really amazing idea of flipping Pepper's Ghost and using laser projection and a couple other really incredible pieces of technology that they created into this kind of 3D stage scenario. And we had a little, I don't know if you were at that one, I don't think we had met yet, but we had this dollhouse size setup of what cages would look like if we were able to raise the
Mhm.
money. And I think we did 4 nights at this gallery once a month for 4 months and invited every agent, every investor, anyone we knew to come down and see it. And it was not until the fourth one that we found our main executive producer who really just believed
Wow.
in the vision. And we were able to start going. We took out a lease on that building that you saw down in the Arts District and just started experimenting. The crazy thing is we had the music done, but we thought we were going to open in 6 to 8 months because we had no idea what we were doing and had no idea what the LA permitting situation was going to be. And it took just under 4 years to even open.
Wow.
So we had a ton of time to refine and keep switching things up and learning what was wrong, what wasn't working. And by the time we opened up, it felt decently dialed, and we had elevated the show a lot further than what we were hoping for.
No, it's very special and it feels very new in a theater world right now where it feels like everyone's just pulling from IP. And I mean, I love musical theaters where my as a kid, that was my roots. Like that's what I love. I've seen every musical ever in existence of time. Like it's my happy place. But I feel like Broadway has done the Hollywood thing, which is it chases IP for this idea of selling seats. And instead of investing in fresh new ideas or something that becomes a classic of our time, we're just sort of repeating the same old rote format. So it
Yes.
felt very fresh in terms of bringing in, this mixed media environment where you have traditional theater and dancing, and then you have these like CGI Tim Burton-esque sort of energy.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to get on that next. So everyone on Broadway did not understand the concept before we started. So no one wanted to be involved. And I get it because it made no sense to traditional Broadway investors. But the main reason why we did it was, okay, if you look back on Broadway from the beginning, the music that was on stage was exactly what was happening in the mainstream. So whatever was popular in that time, that was what
Mhm.
was, coming out on Broadway. There came a time in the 60s where it just kind of stopped, 60s, 70s, and everything just sounded like Broadway. It became its own musical genre.
Right.
And of course, there have been standout shows like Spring Awakening, Rent, like that brought in the modern, and of course, they're iconic shows. We just loved those, and we were so inspired by that. I'm like, well, what would happen if we did, this kind of electronic, like industrial bits of like psychedelic pop, but thrown all into one show and then put a story to it. And that was why we started in the first place. It was based off of, well, there are no musicals that sound like this. And this is what we wish we could hear on a show. So we made that. And then it expanded with the visuals. Well, why can't we do live CGI? Why does it have to be a practical? If we want to light the stage on fire, we can't do that. Well, why don't we just do that with projections and 3D illusions? Or we want to fill the stage up with water, not practical. Let's do it with illusions. So that's where that came into play. And that was really just to elevate the story.
Yeah, but then you have to go learn a whole other discipline. So how did you even figure out how to do the CGI formats and I mean, if anyone goes to see Cages, it's top notch, beautiful technology. Nothing about this is like lo-fi production. it's a whole other thing.
Totally.
Where do you begin?
That's just partnerships. Like the Richardsons, that was them. That was their idea, and they were able to help make that come to life. And we worked with them and a few other CG artists to create the visual aesthetic of the world.
Yeah. It's very cool. I think you're building a new category, which is always so hard to be the first mover. I can attest to that in my startup. When you're
Yes.
trying to build something new, there's so much resistant to change and you have to educate along the way. And so everyone always says you like, they're like, oh, you want to be the innovator, you want to be the first. But really, when you're the first, you're most likely to fail because the
Yes.
public isn't ready yet. And so you have to be able to endure long enough that people catch up to where you are. And I'm more of a forward future thinking person. So I understood cages immediately, but I imagine there was some tension there for you
Definitely.
in terms of the market and trying to explain what you were doing to old thinkers and new thinkers.
Yeah, it really, I mean, the beauty of how we did it in LA was we started strictly word of mouth. We opened up because of the permitting situation and everything, we were able to slowly open up the doors. So it started with just friends, and then we opened it up to, no promotion money ever went into it. We never marketed the show. It was only word of mouth. So we really could only scale up from one night to two nights. And we eventually got up to 4 or 5 nights a week before the pandemic closed it. And that was all kind of film and music people. I don't really think many theater people came to go see the show. And if they did, I don't know if it was their cup of tea. I think it
Right.
more filmmakers, they were the ones that seemed drawn to it. And oddly horror fans, it's not really a horror show, but that demographic really seemed to cling to it.
I mean, that's really all you need because once you have a loyal base, it starts to move. You need the people that are passionate, and then their word of mouth will hopefully
That's it.
carry
And
you.
that proved it. Like it was strictly word of mouth. That was it.
So then how did you find yourself getting excited about producing music again? Like how did that evolve from Cages to being like, okay, actually I want to go more all in on music production again?
I think a lot of that actually was because of Melanie Martinez. I worked with her years ago. We're both from Long Island, and we caught up in the middle of Cages. She came by to see the show, and we were like, oh, like, well, no, what do you wish was out there? And we started working together again, and that turned into Portals, which was a full
Mhm.
concept album, and that got me really excited about music again. The idea of, oh, like,
Right.
they're full projects. It's a world being built. She's telling the story. I mean, she's such a brilliant artist, musician, singer. And visual visionary as well. It was nice to work with someone and create a world together, and that got me back in, all in. And then I really doubled down on that particular type of style, concept albums,
Mm.
and that's been what I've been doing the last few years, just really locked in on a lot of different artist concept albums.
I just want to note for people that are listening, in a lot of ways, Cages set you up for that, right? Because you built your own universe and your own world with your own
Absolutely. It
style
opened
and
doors
musical
that I
tone.
think would not have been opened if I was continuing to only produce.
Our careers are nonlinear. Like there's these moments that we do these things or we explore these things, and maybe we don't understand why if it doesn't net the ultimate success that we thought it would. And then it's looking back, you're like, actually, this was such valuable, like a PhD in world building that now allows me to step into building these concept albums in a different way because I've personally, done this myself.
Definitely. And doing Cages was an absolute marathon. That was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And honestly, the most intense emotionally on so many different levels that making records felt nice. It felt, I don't know, there was something about it that it felt not less stakes because the stakes are maybe even higher because other artists, but it just felt warmer to me.
Yeah, well, this is a good note for people that romanticize entrepreneurship is that it is brutal
Yes.
and it is lonely and it is, there's collaboration is so beautiful,
Mhm.
especially when you have the right resources. But entrepreneurship is not what people shake it out to be. It's a very challenging path because you are the one that is completely driving the car. You don't know where you're going or how to get there. At least like when you're making music with someone, you're both in the car together and you're like, okay, we have an idea that we're moving towards this album.
Yes, exactly. There's a clear goal and usually a beautiful deadline, which is nice.
Yeah,
Something to work
it
towards,
helps.
you know?
Yeah, because then you're like that's the thing, the goalpost as an entrepreneur, you're like, "Oh, we'll get the permits in 6
It's
months.
never.
Oh, 4 years."
It's just they
Yeah.
just keep moving it further out.
It's so, so tough. But I love that you've built an ecosystem, which I think is important as a creative, is the more sort of, I think, how do I phrase this? Like flags on a map we have, they can buoy us in times where we're burnt out on one or another one to have more than one space that plays together nicely is really important in the world we live in just because it's such a volatile time that you can't really rely as we see in entertainment right now like you can't rely on that being the only thing you can do because the ground is just so shaky.
It's so true.
How do you know when it's time to move on from a creative project or to let go?
I think there comes a time where you just feel so burnt on it and it's bringing you absolutely no joy. And I think that's usually the moment when I'll step away. But I gotta say, I will really go through a lot of joyless days on some things, for sure. I will
Yeah.
really just go. I don't usually move on from something unless it has absolutely destroyed me. And I have done that a few times.
I tend to be a little bullish. I'm a little too
Yeah, I know you are.
it's so funny. My friend got me this road opening magic candle from House of Intuition.
Uh-huh.
So I was like lighting it at my house. And the other day I kept lighting it and the wick kept going out. And I'm like, why the hell is this wick going out? So I was Googling like what's going on. I'm like, is the air where is this wick drowning? Like the wick's not drowning. What's going on? And then I was just like, this road will open, you know? And then as I kept lighting this wick, I realized oh, we're just at the bottom of the candle, but I just couldn't tell because there was still like enough wax. This is such a great microcosm for my life where I'm like, the road will open. And I'm like, girl, you're done. The road's
The road's
open.
open.
Let it go. You're done.
Yes. Yeah.
But that mindset is important. I think what you're saying is like if it's tearing you apart to let it go, but you also have to be able to withstand some discomfort and challenge to
Absolutely.
get where you want to go.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of that, I think, especially in music because it's a lot of people trying to make music.
Yeah. Well, we had a Verite on the podcast a couple weeks ago,
Which is great.
and she was talking about that she believes music doesn't really have value in the same way that it used to. People aren't paying for music. And I, as a DJ, I pay for my music. I'm one of the sole contributors here.
Nice.
But in a streaming environment, like how do you interpret that as someone who clearly, you know, both of you guys are still making music? What are you future casting for the music industry?
It's interesting. I look at streaming as marketing now. I think yes, if you're getting a lot of streams, great. But in the days of physicals, right? I remember even with my band, there was no streaming yet. It was you had CDs and you sold CDs. Not as many people were able to listen to the music. You know, you had your core fan base, and yes, you could build it online, you could build it on the road, but you were limited to the people that see your music and see you and they like you, and then they want like you enough to buy the music. Now, that's not the case. Now you can have 10, 20, 30,000 people listen to your song as a brand new artist that never would have heard you before. And if they resonate, even if you only get 1%, 0.1% of these people as fans, that's great. And that is one thing I will say about streaming that is a positive. The rest, absolutely negative. It's completely devalued music. It's it doesn't hold the same weight, a song now, as it did even
Mm,
just 10 years ago. So I think there's the
yeah.
up and down of it, but and I'll also add, I mean, very timely to now, but AI is going to change everything. And I'm curious to see how these deals go through with Suno because I know they're working with all the labels right now to broker deals because all the music, all the tech was trained on records that have copyrights.
Right.
So what does that look like when, my 7-year-old niece can go on Suno, type in a prompt, and release a song in one day? It's going to be so flooded with even more music. What stands out in that period? And I think one, it's world builders. I think it's going to become more important than ever to truly build a world that people want to live in. Okay, yes, have the music, build the music, but that's one component to the world of this artist. You need the
Mhm.
visuals, you need the language, everything, and then slowly build that world, even if it's on Discord or something. Build that community of people that want to live in the world and want to tell their friends to come join them in this world after school, after work, whatever. I do think that is where things are going to pivot heavily in the next couple of years.
That's really interesting. I like hearing the pros of streaming, not because I'm not a streaming like stan over here, but I think it's important to understand what you're saying. Like music artist discovery is essential. When I first started DJing, I relied on Hype Machine. That was
Yes,
what I
I
relied
remember that.
on to discover artists. I thought Hype Machine was such a great
We're
model
missing that.
because it was,
We need something
yeah,
like that. I just had this conversation the other day. There's no hype machine. You can't listen to Pitchfork, and it's very specific
yeah.
taste. That's not for everybody.
And for those of the people that are younger and don't know what Hype Machine is, Hype Machine was basically an aggregate of all the music blogs, and they would talk about artists, and then you would heart them up these charts, and they made these like user-based charts. So it was, I think, as close to a musical meritocracy as you could possibly have. And why I liked it was because it felt like the people were voting on these new artists, and it became a discovery machine that was based on people's reaction, audience reaction. And I'm sure a lot of the base was deep music lovers like myself, but it felt like a different way of discovering that there wasn't any. Now there's so much money pushing artists, and I just want to get to a place where it's like, can I just like listen to, maybe you don't have any money pushing you. How do I find that person? How do they hack their career? How do they get into the mainstream conversation? And Hype Machine felt like it was an equalizer.
It was actually that was the beginning of Cages because we dropped an EP and it went up Hype Machine, and that's we actually signed a deal for just the EP to Warner Brothers Germany, only one territory, which gave us just literally it was a specific move, and we used that advance money to make the pop-up show that we used as a fundraising effort. So
Wow.
like that truly that did start because of Hype Machine and because we it topped that chart.
Well, I mean, a lot of artists got signed that way.
That
It
was the
was
way. That
a
was the only way back whatever 10 years ago.
Yeah, and when we come back to this idea of, okay, if AI is gonna take over, I personally just constantly come back to the things that change or preserve in the world are human made. The things that move
Mhm.
culture will never be made by a tool that aggregates knowledge off the internet. Like you might get a fun, catchy pop song that lasts for 2 months, but is that going to be something that matters in 10 years? And I just don't think AI is going to do that. There's plenty of garbage pop songs that exist now. If that multiplies by 1000x, whatever. I think your point of view around world building is pretty powerful and interesting to me. I have not heard this take, so I'm sort of processing in real time with you. But I think you're right. We talk about this in terms of writing or directing. I've had this conversation, but people's point of view is going to be the differentiator. And so we have to have a point of view moving forward. We have to figure out what that is. And that involves a little bit of internal inquiry.
Yes. Yeah, it's so key. That's going to be everything. Your true identity and your world that you have created. And then, of course, the talent that you have. That's going to, even more so than ever, I think real artistry will be praised because it will be difficult for all the other people to prove that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just never going to replace hearing someone who has an amazing voice sing live. Like, there's
Exactly.
never anything that's going to replace that
No,
feeling. It's just one of the most magical feelings as a human being you can experience.
it is. It is. I do think that it's going to pivot into two worlds. There will be the organic world of, yes, world building and artists that occupy this space. And then I think there will be other worlds, again, maybe even fully AI or curated by a human, but heavy AI use. And it's more about the community and world that they build. Think
Mhm,
about it more like a rave or something, and it's decorated
mhm.
in this brand. And I do think there will be a lot of that we end up seeing people that just, it's like it always has been a community, but it's going to pivot pretty
Yeah,
hard. And I think that both those spaces will be occupied and there'll be nothing in the middle. Anything in the middle is going to just be noise.
totally. I think it's been interesting for me as a DJ, because I try to be pretty timely. I try to be sort of like cheeky sometimes, play some like fun
Yeah.
little,
I love
this
I love a
summer.
Denise set.
Yeah. This summer there was like a Love Island quote that was turned into a song. So I played that for like 3 weeks because that was the span of relevance.
So
Like it
good.
was not
But that
so fun for
so
those
fun.
3 weeks.
Do you remember when White Lotus, the first season came out and they had like that was
Yeah.
amazing those remixes, hearing that out live? That's what I'm
So
talking
fun.
about. It's a world.
Totally. But what I've realized is I'm like, what remains? Because there's songs like I'm sure everyone remembers last summer, Man in Finance went
Yes.
off
Yes.
on TikTok,
Hmm.
went off. It is not relevant a year later.
No.
It does not work in the club. It does not hit in the club. There's certain songs I've been playing for 10 years. Housework, for example. I've been playing Housework for over a decade, probably almost every single set. That's how much I love that song.
Wow.
Still hits
Still
every
hits.
single time. And that's what is interesting for me as I look at some of this stuff because I'm like, oh yeah, this song will work for this summer. This song will work for a month. What am I going to be playing in next year or the year after? And it's very clear how quick some songs move right out and how some songs remain. And that's my perspective as a DJ is that's the lens I have is what's working now, what's going to continue to work. And because I do this every weekend, I have a good real-time sense of what feels like it has more cultural weight.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, fast fashion equivalent into
Mhm.
music. That's kind of what it is. Something happens. It's a meme culture, right? Like a meme is hot for a second and then it's gone. Music is kind of
Mhm.
being memeified right now.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
when you make music, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't matter, like, we all love a little bubble gum, but when you're making songs, are you sometimes like, "Yeah, this is bubble gum," or, "This is something that I really think is gonna make a difference?"
definitely. It just depends. I think a lot of the pitches, like if there are ever pitch things, they tend to lean more on this kind of what's happening right now in culture and how can we exploit it. And I think a lot of these artist projects, they're too specific. There's this
Right.
world that they've already built, which to me makes the music more timeless because it has nothing to do with
Yeah.
what's happening right now. So in those sessions, yeah, I don't think I really hit that often.
Well, Jimmy Iovine said in that the documentary, The Defiant Ones, that if you're a racehorse, the reason they have blinders on is because 'cause they're not looking around them, and that's why they win, and so much of the creative journey is not being consumed with what's happening around you, it's just being
So true.
consumed by your
I
vision.
love that so much. And especially with chasing sounds. As soon as something is popular, I go the complete opposite direction, always.
Mhm.
And I think when I was younger, I'd be, oh, like that, I love that song. Let me see if I can make my version of that. It's already too late. It's done.
Yes.
You're already missed the boat. Move on. And I've said it before, like, what is the absolute antithesis? And I will try to do
Mhm.
that because I think you'll have a
It's
better chance with that.
You will. What I think is interesting is when I see other artists, there's like a sound that does really well and they're all replicating it. And you're like, why do you think your version of that is going to work? I don't really understand that impetus as an artist or creative because I'm like you. I always want to do something different or I always want to say something that feels
Yep.
different, not sort of like follow the crowd. But a lot of people do that,
Most people do that.
but it never works.
That's all of pop culture, right? It's the same with
Yeah.
fashion, the same with film trends,
Hmm.
even on Instagram, like your filter. So when that happens, again, because everyone's trying to do that, how do you do that opposite?
Right. It is cyclical. I will say I'm not mad at we're coming back to the 90s club era, which I
Yes.
feel like I
Peak.
I came of age too late.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that I get to revisit these crazy 90s club tracks,
Yeah.
I am living. I've been waiting my whole life for this moment.
Sandstorm.
Yes. I'm like the Venga Boys, like there's so many. What's the other one I love? LaBouche. Like there's
Oh,
so many bangers
perfection.
that we forgot about. Okay, so for someone that is looking to start today, pursuing a musical path, how would you prepare them to step into this cuckoo world of music?
Okay. I think one, ask yourself, how much do you love making music? Do you have to be making music in order to be happy? Then do it. If the answer is no or maybe, leave. because it's going to be such a crazy next 10 years. And there's just so much talent and so much drive, especially out here in LA, that you need to want it. That's the first thing. Second thing, I would say find an artist that you really love. Like genuinely you wish that this sound was popular. You wish that it existed, and then work together with them, or it might just be yourself as a solo artist, and develop it. Make the thing that you wished existed, which is so cliche. It's been said a million times, but I really stand behind that, because anytime, at least for me, that I've tried to make something because I thought that's what other people were going to like, or I thought that's what labels were going to want to buy, it has not worked for me. So, and anytime I've just done something because I was genuinely inspired to do it, it has found a home one way or another.
That's the right advice. It's you got to make for you, and eventually your people will find
Yep.
you. But when you're making it for someone else, it just never nets
Nope.
quite the same. It's always in Hollywood the screenplay that they were like, nothing's happening. I'm gonna write this thing because I just have to fucking write it. I'm just gonna do it, and that's the thing
The
that like
thing.
makes their career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that every creative ever in the history of time is like, don't do this unless you have to do it. That was advice was given to me before I became a TV producer, I was like toying with the idea of Broadway production.
Huh?
So I did this like Broadway boot camp and I got connected to a lot of big Broadway producers. And this one guy who'd done like Hairspray and like all these massive Broadway hits, he was like, Denise, this is a hobby until it's not a hobby. Do not do this. And I was sitting there, I was like, it's actually probably in the history of my life, probably the only advice I've ever listened to, because I just was like, you know what? This is not the path to financial freedom. I was like, TV feels a little bit maybe a better path, and maybe I can revisit Broadway later in life. And I don't know what it was, because usually I'm very resistant to that kind of prescriptive advice,
Absolutely.
but he was right.
Yeah, it can't, I think any of these creative fields, it can't be about making money. If that happens, great, and you can build towards it in any of the avenues. But it's got to be, I need to do this. It's the only thing that's going to fulfill me. Then do it, because you're probably onto something.
And in this new economy and world we're living in, more and more people just need to, that's why I'm doing this podcast, do the thing that fulfills you, because there is no security
No.
in the career sector as there used to be. So how do we make a life and build a life that makes us feel fulfilled and like we're contributing what we're here to contribute?
Absolutely true.
Thank you, CJ, for taking the time today. This was
Thank you.
so much fun.
I always love a Denise hang.
Same. I had a blast. I'm like, this may
Yeah,
be
it's
like
so
one of
fun.
my I never talk about music that much, I guess. And so I think I'm sitting here being like, I'm having a blast. Like, this is so interesting to me because I care so much about music. I just, I dream of being a pop star. I don't have the voice for it, you know?
You could do it. You know what? I have some plugins for you.
I'm gonna take you up on it, CJ. I did one session with a friend who's like a music producer, and it was like when I was really shy. We just did a fun
Uh-huh.
session, and I made like a Krayshawn kind of song.
Let's go.
Yeah, but I think I have some club tracks in my future. I just have to have a little bit more
I
confidence
see
in
it.
the
I see
lyrics.
it for you. You have it.
All right, we're gonna revisit this. Thank you so much. We're going to put in the show notes where you can find CJ, learn all about him and his works. Everything he does is just super interesting and worth a look. So don't sleep on him. And thank you for the time today.
Thank you for having me.
We will see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you do like listening, it would mean the world to us if you could subscribe or review the podcast anywhere that you watch or listen to the podcast. It really helps with the algorithm to share this with the world. I want to give a special thank you to young Spielberg and Sarah Yarkin for their beautiful work on our opening jingle, Dana Boulos for her help with the beautiful art, and to all of you for tuning in and keeping this dream alive. If you want to hear certain topics or from certain guests, please feel free to email us. We really, really want to hear from you and see how we can best support you. See you next time.